A'udzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi rzuqni ilma. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. Wa tawakkal 'ala wa kafa billahi wakila. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. Subhanallahi wa astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah. To believe that we're not sick is the illusion. No matter which stage of life we're in, our hearts are in either a state of now sickness or in a state of potential sickness. There are only two states that the qalb knows. Either a now sickness that it's experiencing actively or a potential sickness that it's waiting to experience. So in Surah Marriage, in Ayah 19, Allah Ta'ala says, indeed, humankind was created halu'a. Now, the translation that's been given here of halu'a is impatient. But as we have understood in our journey so far, so limited and so not accurate. Because halu'a is not impatient. Halu'a means anxious. This is the ayah 19 of Surah Marriage, which is insan has been indeed, innal insan. ये नहीं है कि कोई कुछ इंसान है और कुछ नहीं है या कभी होंगे कभी नहीं होंगे. The state of insan, indeed, emphasis, the state of insan is halu'a. And halu'a, the word is anxious. And even I love the sound medicine of these words as well, or the sound aspect of these words. And hala already has a sense of anxiousness around it. So halua is anxious, and anxious is a state of angst, of course, a constant dis-ease that we're in, but it is also a state of miserliness. So Allah Ta'ala, the way halua is spoken of is when evil afflicts insan, he becomes anxious. Halua, he goes off balance, off center. वो हिल जाता है इंसान. That is the state of anxiety, of angst, which is halua. And when khair comes to him, he withholds, he becomes stingy. Why? Because halua is both anxious and also hula, which is miserliness. So hala is anxiety, hula is miserliness, and then halua is anxious and miserly. Except for those who pray constantly, which is musalli. And the halu'a, the state of being in this sense of anxiety, is akin to that of the cry of a baby. The moment a baby is born, there is an exposure that the baby is feeling to an alien environment. And the baby is anxious. What stills the baby? The breast. And the breast in Arabic is halama. And when he's given the breast, or she's given the breast, he becomes halim, which is, of course, also the name of Allah, calms down. And one of the words for intellect in Islam is halam. Halam is intellect. So halam means it only functions when we are in a state of equilibrium. So the heart that we're referring to, that we suppose at some moments in our life when our senses are telling us that we are at rest, that heart, that qalb may not be prone to anxiety, may not be prone to disease, but it is still exposed to the potential of dis-ease, the potential of anxiety. So there is no moment in our life, where we can be absolutely confident of the fact that we have healed. And so healing then is an unfolding and a constant vigilance upon the qalb. And we know that the root word for qalb is the one that is in a constant state of turning this way or that way. It is never stationary, which is also the state of iman. It is in a constant state of turning this way or that way. is never constant, never constant. And the illusion is the fact that we're not, that I have arrived. The illusion is the fact that I have healed. The illusion is the fact that I am aware of the potential even of the diseases of my heart. And now I don't need to stay vigilant over it anymore. And because Allah knows that we are prone to these illusions, and because He is the creator of qalb, Allah has given us the healing verses in Quran. The 6 healing verses specifically made to shift either the current disease or the potential disease from its state of imbalance back to balance. But again, it is not a one-time act. It's a constant journey, and it's a constant jaddo-jahad, it's a constant jihad. So the jihad, the nafs ka jihad is supreme over all other jihad. And the jihad is, I am standing in protection, in vigilance, in guardianship of my qalb. And there is a difference between qalb and sadr. It is not used interchangeably. And both words are used in the Quran, but they're not used interchangeably. So Allah Ta'ala actually uses in Quran 3 aspects of the heart, which in English, of course, is a limiting way of saying it, calling it the heart. But there is qalb, there is fuad, and then there is sadr. The difference is that qalb is the word which means, it comes from the root, which means that it turns around, about, and upside down. And the iman and the diseases of the heart are called diseases of the qalb. They're not called diseases of the sadr. And they're also not called the diseases of fuad. They're called diseases of the qalb, because that's the energy. Qalb is the energy within the sadr. Now, sadr is used for meaning, or as a meaning of a chest, like a treasure chest. So, ऐसे है जैसे उस sadr के अंदर qalb है. And the beautiful thing and the powerful thing is that qalb, the essential life force of a moment, the one that is, yes, in a constant state of turning, but is supremely gifted and supremely powerful because it is so precious. It is enclosed in a sadr. And the power of waswasa that is given to Iblis, given to Shaitan, is only in the sadr. Yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas in Surah Nas, in sadr, not upon the qalb. The one who whispers in English, it says the hearts of mankind, no, only in the sadr of mankind. Shaitan does not and cannot whisper, cannot do waswasa upon the qalb, into our qulub, only in the chests of us. And this because qalb is Allah's, and what is protecting the qalb is the sadr. And what gives opening towards the diseases are the eyes, the tongues, the ears, the hands. They're all gates to the sadr. And so Shaitan does not have the access to qalb, but he waits for us to open the doors through our eyes, our tongues, our ears, and hearts, hands of the sadr. And that whisper that he has whispered in the sadr begins to seep into the qalb of us. So Shaitan will never have access to the qalb. And so when we say that we are healing, whether it is, or we are on the journey of healing, whether it's a physical or an emotional or a mental disease, the root, the energy that we are trying to stabilize is never of the mind, is never of the body. There is an imbalance in the qalb that we're trying to reach for. And when that imbalance is put back into equilibrium, even momentarily, it sparks off an awareness of the fact that I am in connection to Allah. What is the state of equilibrium? I am in connection to my Creator. That means all is well. And so to be able to heal ourselves asks us to take a leap of faith. No, a leap of trust. Faith is an advanced level. I would say actually the opposite. Trust is the super advanced level, and faith comes automatically. So the insan is in a state of halwa because only when they believe that they don't have an original state of equilibrium, of sukoon, of itminan, of mutmain qalb available. And trusts asks us to remember that there is a bed that we are, and that bed is pure and full and rich and fertile, and everything else that's happening on top of the bed is what is happening on top of the bed. It is not the bed. The bed is pure and full and fertile and rich and blossoming and fragrant. Always, always. The bed does not depend upon the waves on it. It does not depend on what is happening. The bed is always forever there. So, what is our journey then? To be able to access the qalb bed of us, the ruh bed of us, we have to dive into the waves, which are the waves of distance and dis-ease, of rejection, of pain, of separation and loneliness. It is always a dive in from the top, and our job is to dive through all the levels of separation that keep us separate in our awareness from the bed of purity. And that bed of purity is not an outside bed, it's not a there bed. That bed of purity is mine as my gift from Allah. It is Allah's bed. It is Allah's raham. It is a bed of halim. That is what that bed is. And so when we say that we are inviting a doctor to come in and to heal our qalb, the doctor cannot heal your qalb. Because the best thing that the doctor can do, and I'm talking about soul medicine, I am talking about doctors of the heart, I am talking about sheikh, I am talking about all the people we go to for dua or for dam or for durud, whoever we go to, they cannot heal our qalb. They are not even assigned by Allah. The best that any of us are the diving instructors. We're going to hold your hand, and they're not going to let go of your hand until you touch the bed of your own qalb, until we touch the bed of our own richness. That's all any other person other than who you are can do for you. But that being a diving instructor is also a powerful act. But again, they're still holding your hand, still enabling you to reach the bed of you, which has been given to you by your creator. It has actually nothing to do with them. The only difference is they're in the practice of diving. And how we reach that practice of diving is by constantly, forever diving into ourselves, not while doing muraqabah, not while doing namaz only, not while creating small spaces of meditation, but on a daily, every moment basis. This practice of diving into ourselves, because the trust is not an assumption. The trust is, I am divine. I don't just come from him. I'm not just of him. I am divine. The trust is, I am divine. Then why am I hurting this person? Then why am I lashing out at that person? Then why am I bleeding on that person? Why am I shouting? Why am I not acting from a place of divinity, which is always the place of hilm, of halim, of this? And remember, halim is, subhanallah, halim is the breast of a mother which is bursting with milk, bursting with milk. And you know that not only for the most nutritious, the most potent ghaza that one can ever give to the body, which is actually the ghaza of the ruh, is a mother's milk. And it is that milk that sustains that human being, first calms that human being and sustains that human being through the rest of their lives. One which has not been fed by the mother begins to demonstrate, the body begins to demonstrate a lot of weaknesses in the later part of their lives. That one drop of milk or many drops of milk fed to a child sustain the rest of their lives. This is who we are. This is our power of being able to access the hilm of us, the halim aspect of Allah. And so it is not the shaitan ever. It is never an outside force. It is never anybody's nazar. It is never any magic. No magic can enter through that sadr into our qalb, because all disease originates from the qalb. No magic can enter the qalb until the door of the sadr has been opened. And there is no one who has the power, subhanallah, to open that door of sadr except for you. No one can do it. No one can force you to do it. No one can persuade you to do it. And no one can open it for you. Only you. And so, in the realm of healing, when we say that there is somebody who is plotting this blackness around me, which is what we call black magic, and it's affecting me, the question is not who is doing it or how they're doing it and what forces they have employed to do it. No, the question is, what made you open the door? Because Vasvasa, and we remember that, is a hyper customized algorithm that will only custom speak to your wounds. So the Vasvasa that works on Madiha's Sadr is not a Vasvasa that works on your Sadr. It cannot, because it's hyper customized. And so that Vasvasa is hyper customized to what? To my wound. So if my constant wound has been, I don't belong, I am an outsider, and I will forever remain an outsider, then the Vasvasa is hyper customized to, hey, why don't you fit in this way? Hey, why don't you start teaching Quran? You can fit in this way. There is an entire community there. Hey, why don't you actually join the Sufi Silsila? You can fit in this way. There are many ways, many ways. And I will tell myself, it makes me feel so good, but there are many ways that my Vasvasa essentially is telling me that, Madiha, it is important for you to fit in. And when you fit in, you know what happens when we begin to fit into places? We begin to lose perspective of other beautiful places of Allah. Because we really want to fit into that box. And we will really imbibe the fragrance and the colors and the clothes and the mannerisms and the terminology of that box, because we want to fit in, because we feel like an outsider. But what it comes at a great cost. We lose out, because Allah has not made his signs, his ayah visible in a masjid. He's not said, if you want to look at my verses, Allah Ta'ala has not talked about look at masajid. As Allah Ta'ala does not say look at a synagogue. Allah Ta'ala does not say look into a shrine. Allah Ta'ala says look into the heart, or look at the sky, look at the universe, observe the stars. Allah Ta'ala has not limited himself. Allah Ta'ala has not limited his malkiyat or his zuhur. Subhanallah, Allah Ta'ala has not limited his zuhur upon a structure, or even, subhanallah, upon a religion. The Allah of Musa is the Allah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Allah of Buddha is the Allah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Allah of all, because Allah has sent messengers to every nation. The one messengers that have been named and messengers who have not been named. Both Paighambar and Rasul. Those who have been given books and those who have been made just as messengers without the books. Both Allah has made for every nation. Allah Ta'ala has never, ever, ever left, not just a nation. Allah Ta'ala has never left a people. Allah Ta'ala has never left a part of his kainat empty of guidance. Subhanallah, never. So to believe that we are the elevated ones because we come from a certain religion, even if it is Islam, because Islam asks us to honor every prophet, named and unnamed, every angel, every book, every message that has come before. Because subhanallah, as is true for ancestral guidance, as is true for ancestral healing, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam became the imam of all his ancestors. But subhanallah, the honor sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he gives to all of his ancestors, the honor that he gives to the one who came 500 years before him, the honor, subhanallah, the honor that he gives to his arrival linked the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. We call it alayhi salam. How? No, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because when we know the energy of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we know that it is the perfected energy of the energy in making through all the prophets. Subhanallah, the Kalimullah, and the Khalilullah, Subhanallah, and the one who healed, Subhanallah, the Ulul Anbiya, the perfection of that energy is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the perfection of all guidance is the Quran. And so, when we say, okay, we are the ones who are opening the doors of our sadr, and our wasfasas are being whispered to us, the incredible importance, but also I don't want to say importance, our lives depend on it, to know what our triggers are, to know what our illusions are. Because we don't heal the triggers, we don't heal the illusions. But when they come as a wave. And remember, we are divers. So we dive through the waves looking. And every time, every day, every moment, there is a new wave which will come up. Because that is the way insan and this dunya has been created. It is a constant test, a constant challenge for the qalb, because that is the only way the qalb also strengthens and becomes more strong if it were a muscle, then that, but more pure as an energy. That's how the qalb purifies. And so to be aware of our triggers means that the next time there is a knock on our door, and the knock is of the waswasa, the knock is of shaitan, we want to ask, who is at the door, and what new illusion are you here to show me today? What new illusion that I am holding that you're here to show me today? And then the honor that you give to that waswasa. Subhanallah, the honor that we give to that waswasa. We don't get scared of waswasas. Why? What is the power given to waswasa? A whisper. Subhanallah, whisper in our darkness, in an unawareness. That whisper is a loud sound. But in our awareness, it's a whisper. And that whisper is honored because it's here to teach us something more about my own darkness. It's here to teach me something more about my own darkness that I was not aware of before. And every time that it comes knocking, and I ask, okay, which new wisdom are you here to share with me today through my waswasa? Which new darkness are you going to show to me today? Then stay strong and have the courage to look at that darkness, because it is going to blow you apart. It is going like a bulldozer rams through a stone mountain every time. So it's not as if the mountain gets used to being excavated upon, and the mountain being our qalb. So earlier it was the sea, and now it's the qalb as a mountain. So we can keep shifting the analogies. So it's not like the qalb becomes more used to being plowed upon. It's not like every time a new waswasa comes on board and comes to our awareness, we become better at feeling less miserable about it. No, the feeling is just as strong. It still hurts just as much. But subhanallah, there is a relief that comes with it, because it feels like we have mountains of triggers within us, like terrains of mountains of triggers within us. And they are unnamed mountains and unnamed triggers. But we are carrying those mountains within us. Every time a waswasa comes knocking on our door, we are given the awareness to put a tag on that mountain. And then through our awareness, we begin to plow through that mountain. And that mountain eventually crumbles. But subhanallah, as is the stage of the human experience, another mountain comes up. It could be tiring. It may feel like we feel I'm done. I've had enough. And those are valid moments. But the fact that there have always been mountains to be plowed through is one thing that we are being asked to live with and live by, which is why Allah Ta'ala has said that the only constant cure, the constant shifa for all diseases of the qalb is the Quran. Is the zikr of Allah. Is the zikr of Allah. And the most powerful zikr of Allah, of course, is the Quran, and many other ways of doing the zikr of Allah. But to constantly be in zikr, कि मैं आपके बारे में सोच रही हूँ, मैं आपका ख्याल रख रही हूँ, मैं आपको देख रही हूँ, आप मुझे देख रहे हैं. There's a constant awareness that I'm standing when it comes to you. This is the zikr of Allah. Because if I'm not standing in constant awareness, if my eyes are distracted, then when the door is knocked upon, and the door is knocked upon many times in a day, It's not even once a week. Many times in a day, that door is knocked upon. If I'm not standing in awareness of Allah, 8 times out of 10, I'm not speaking for myself. I'm not standing in awareness of Allah. Then I forget and I react. I open the door, and in comes my own weaknesses, in comes my own shadows, in comes my own fears and my own lack. And then there is so much that comes together that I don't know how to deal with it. But when I teach my tongue to be in the state of zikr and practice it, you will know that if you give yourself, I took it as a challenge for myself because I know exactly how prone, how bullet-ridden my soul is. I know how many holes there are. I know that how sensitive my door of sadr is. हल्का सा भी कोई हल्की अभी किसी की दूर से चलने की आवाज नॉक करने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती है मेरे तो सदर को सुभान अल्लाह कोई दूर से भी चलता हुआ आ रहा होता है फटाफट दरवाजा खोल जी 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 बताएं बताएं सो मेरी तो बहुत ही हाइपर सेंसिटिविटी और हाइपर वो है टू वसवसास सो the only antidote that works for me is I treat it as I'm going to the gym and I have a goal. That means that I give myself impossible amount of tasbeehs to do in a day. And literally that's the only thing that has saved me to give by giving myself an impossible number of different kinds of tasbeehs to do in a day. And the moment I get used to doing one tasbih and it becomes faster and simpler, I give myself another tasbih to do. Because when I'm not in a state of zikr, and you will notice it, because when we're not used to being in a state of zikr, then, and I want us to feel it too, then we are absent. We are absent. Where are we absent from? We're absent from our bed. We're not grounded. And when we are absent, then we are like the hawa ka jhonka. Isliye the desires are also called hawa. Light, fleety, airy, jahan hawa chale aap wahan beh jao. We are absent. There are only 2 states, presence and absence. And when we are not present, presence is zikr. When we are not present, and zikr is either the tasbih of Allah or the act of tasbih of Allah, both ideally, both together, then we are absent. So to believe that there is a third state is the illusion. कि या तो मैं जिक्र कर रही हूँ, अगर मैं जिक्र नहीं कर रही, and remember zikr also acts. Like this right now, what we're doing, your presence here is a zikr. Our acts, our tasbeehs are spoken or our either with our tongue or in our hearts. There is a constant state of awareness that we're in. So जब हम लोग ये कर रहे होते हैं, so then in that moment when a wave comes, when a knock comes or footsteps we hear of outside our sadr, and I love this part. We are on the inside. We're not on the outside. It feels like we've been thrown out onto the outside. That's what birth feels like. That's what an exit from our mother's womb feels like. पहले हम अंदर थे और हम लोग बाहर हैं. ऐसा नहीं है. हम अंदर ही हैं. Woof, beautiful. We're on the inside. We are the inside. Everything else is on the outside. So अगर मेरी जिंदगी में कुछ हो रहा है, no matter how big, excuse me, no matter how heavy, no matter how painful, subhanallah, it is still on the outside. It is still on the outside. I am in my treasure chest. The creator of my preciousness has enabled me to stay in my treasure chest, which is the sadr. And what is my preciousness? My qalb. I glow. My qalb glows. My qalb is noor. My qalb is, it gives, it's a verdant water state of energy. My qalb, feel into your qalb. My qalb is my awareness as who I am. So I'm on the inside. And everything else is happening on the outside. All life is happening on the outside. So when we're not on the inside, which is the zikr of Allah, then again, it's not, I can't say we're on the outside. We can't be on the outside. We can't. Our awareness is actually on the inside, but we are absent from the inside. Subhanallah. We believe we're on the outside. We are humaning right now. That's the word we like to use, right? I'm doing the daily things, the daily chores. We believe the illusion is we're on the outside. But the moment we link those daily chores, the moment we link to the pick and drops of our children's school, or the drives to office, or any places that we find in between meetings, whatever those moments, if we link it to the zikr of Allah, then even as those things are happening, we are at least on the inside. And subhanallah, inside is what Jannat feels like. Inside is what Jannat feels like. It is the home that we're all seeking. Inside is what's in being on the inside is what safety feels like. It's what the security feels like. And also being on the inside is what power feels like, real power. Because अब जब हम लोग inside के ऊपर हैं और अपने कल्ब के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, we are deeply aware, connected, forget awareness, right? We're deeply connected to our कल्ब. तो कल्ब, जिस तरह हम लोग को अपने घरों से बहुत प्यार होता है, और अगर हम लोग उसके ऊपर बहुत एफर्ट लगाते हैं, तो वहां पे अगर एक दीवार क्रैक होना शुरू होती है, तो किसी और को नजर नहीं आता है, वो क्रैक आपको नजर आता है, राइट? So when we are deeply connected to our qalb, when our qalb is turning, we are hoping that it doesn't turn that way. Mostly turns this way. It's not hoping, it's an action. The action is zikr. But when we are insan, we forget and we begin to turn that way, we actually begin to witness our own crack from inside the qalb. Subhanallah. And we don't have to reach the qalb. As we said, okay, there are two stages of self-healing. The first one is that we become the divers, mostly led by people, or sometimes through extreme tragedies or traumas in our own life, we end up deep diving right to the bed of our own selves. So then we don't need teachers, but also that's an illusion to say we don't need teachers. We always need teachers. If the teacher is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you have the most powerful teacher. So the two stages of healing. One is there's something massive happens in our life and we just go soup right through all the waves and right hit the seabed, and we're connected to the seabed. We know what that feels like, and we begin to get connected from there. The other way that it happens is it's a slower part, that we begin to understand the different depths of ourselves. हम लोगों ने ऊपर से शुरू किया, हमने अंदर डाइव किया, तो पहले हम लोग पहली लेयर को समझ रहे हैं, फिर दूसरी लेयर को, फिर तीसरी, और आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हम लोग सीबेड पे पहुंचते हैं. In both instances, the dis-ease is on actually the origin of the dis-ease is the seabed, which is the qalb, which is in a state of motion, which is in a state of imbalance. तो जब हम लोग अपने seabed के साथ connect हुए, when we are connected to our own seabeds, connected to our own qalb, then we are the first ones who begin to see the cracks. Now, whether those cracks are joint pains, or Alzheimer's, or heart disease, or mental disease, or a tumor, or cancer, or sugar, किसी भी किस्म का crack, at the end of it is the crack not upon the seabed, but a crack that originates from the seabed. There is something up with our seabed that has activated that crack. Now, that's a massive responsibility to take upon ourselves. But here's the thing, that seabed is not just ours to take. It's not just ours to own. That seabed has been fed through all of our ancestors. It's the seabed of all of our ancestors. So that means that मेरे बाबा अजदाद और उनके और उनके और उनके, और since the beginning of time, मेरी जितनी भी नस्ल जहां से भी अल्लाह ताला ने इजाजत दी शुरू होने की, उन सब ने मिलके वो सीबेड बनाए हुए. सो अगर वो क्रैक अभी शुरू हुआ है, और जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं कि नहीं हमारे तो ये जीन्स में है, ये हमारी हेरिटेज में, हमारे हार्ट डिजीज हमारी हेरिटेज में है, या हमारे ब्लड प्रेशर, शुगर, डायबिटीज हमारी हेरिटेज में है, ये गलत है. वो हेरिटेज में नहीं है, वो उस सीबेड के अंदर एम्बेड हो गई है. तो वो क्रैक्स उस सीबेड से शुरू हो सकते हैं, लेकिन वो हमारी हेरिटेज में इस तरह ओनली बिकॉज it has been reaffirmed through our genetic ancestors for a very long time, and the composition of the seabed now holds all the beliefs and all the memories of our ancestors. So अब जब in my जिंदगी I see, for example, अगर मैं कहूँ कि हार्ट डिजीज मेरी फैमिली में है, तो अगर मुझे हार्ट के प्रॉब्लम्स हो रहे हैं, तो वो मुझे हार्ट के प्रॉब्लम से पहले मेरे बाप को, उनके अब्बा को, फिर या मेरी माँ को, उनकी अम्मी को, उनको सबको होते रहे हैं. What's the difference though? They could not see those cracks. What's the difference though? They were contributing to the seabed, and they felt that the disease was on the surface. They did not see that the crack originated from their own bed. So the difference is they were on top and I'm on the bottom. The difference is they went and sought help to fix the top layers of the waves, deposited the heavier stuff on the seabed, which were passed on to me. And I did not go to the top. I chose to remain on the seabed, and I chose to regenerate. I chose to weed out or to excavate the seabed instead. I chose not to go on top. So I am a miner picking up the mineral deposits which don't belong in that seabed. And every time the power of that, of the healing universe of Allah, the healing verse of Allah, is that when I pick up the mineral deposits of my ancestors, of pain and of separation, of loneliness, the moment I pick them up, they dissolve. Because who is picking them up? An Abd of Allah. Who is picking them up? A Mujahid. Subhanallah. Who is picking them up? A warrior who is saying that I will sit here and time and space do not matter to me. But I can't float on the surface and deposit my hard stuff onto the seabed and don't look down to the depth. Just look up instead at the sky and continue to float and continue to swim and give birth to children who will continue to receive because वो उस समंदर में पैदा होंगे. वो लहरें उनकी, आपकी लहरें, हमारे बच्चों की, मेरी लहरें, मेरे बच्चों की लहरें भी, मेरा सीबेड, मेरे बच्चों का सीबेड भी. So मैं उनको वो सी नहीं दे सकती. I know what that sea feels like. I know what being in my body feels like. And so the practice of self-healing is the practice of being present upon the seabed. And it is the most wonderful, the most beautiful, the most rewarding practice. Why? Because there is no other word for it. I want to say gift, but what is coming to is power. The power of you being your own doctor reminds us of our own divinity and makes us even more close to our Creator. Subhanallah, if me, the faulty, broken, disease-ridden, moth-ridden, like हमें कीड़ा मुझे तो दिमाग लगी हुई है. If I can be my own doctor, then who is the creator of all doctors? The awe with which and the reverence with which we can connect to our Creator when we become our own doctors. Because there is very less room for pride, subhanallah, on the seabed. There is very less room. I'm not saying there is no room. There's very less room for pride because वो seabed में आपको अपनी इतनी गंदगी नजर आती है, अपनी इतनी बू आती है कि आपके पास वो जगह नहीं रहती है to say, oh, I am so cool because I can heal myself. You are so little and so disease-ridden in your own healing that you being your own healer without the pride that comes with it is the gift Allah Ta'ala gives to you. But for that, we have to be in that presence of that seabed, knowing with the trust that seabed जिसके अंदर से भी crack originate किया है, अगर हमारे even that crack is turned into an entire gutter space around that seabed of my own life, even then, look, उस crack को भी देखेंगे हम, yes. But within that crack, now look at the original seabed of you. Oh my God, that is also accessible. And in most, no, I'm going to say in all cases, subhanallah, if we are in the seabed of ourselves and we are noticing 15 cracks in the way that we smell, which are the diseases that we're holding, our generational genetic disease and our own diseases, and it feels like we are in a weed or like in a in a marshland which stinks, or it's not seen the sun for a long time. It feels that's what our seabed feels like, and everything else around us is also dirty and sticky and weed like, seaweed like, but also smelly. If this is what this feels like to be us right now, we're going to allow ourselves to look under us. And we'll notice that there is another seabed that we as a seabed are hovering over. ऐसे जैसे एक प्योर लाइट का सीबेड है और उसके ऊपर एक थोड़े से मे बी 3 इंच का फासला है या 4 इंच का, और उसके ऊपर हमारा अपना सीबेड है. And all we have to do when we notice that original seabed, which is the hilm, which is the hilm of Allah, all we have to do is drop down the whole seabed of us. Let go and allow yourself to drop down those 4 inches onto the original seabed. Because हमारे अंदर से जो बू आ रही है वो actually is the distance between our seabed and the original seabed. And the moment we allow ourselves to drop down into the original seabed, the connection, the fragrance, and the nourishment of that seabed connects with ours, begins to spread as food does from plants to all its roots within ourselves. And we notice then how we begin to receive the medicine from the original doctor for our own qalb. And as our qalb begins to get filled with the medicine of Allah, which is the original seabed, then it begins to give off that medicine to all the tributaries of ourselves. That means the whole parts of our bodies and our minds, it automatically begins to receive that benefit. So that is what we call the general practitioner way of healing. But then, as our baseline has been set, we're connected back into the seabed. We're not smelling anymore as much. And it's not as murky anymore. It's not as cloudy anymore. Our eyes, our awareness begins to go to a specific crack. And say we call that crack a specific disease that we have, whether it is anxiety or depression or even cancer. We have that one particular crack. But because now हम लोग थोड़े से संभले हैं, थोड़े से हम लोग कनेक्ट हुए हैं अपने ओरिजिनल सीबेड से, और इतना क्लाउडी और इतना मर्की नहीं है सब कुछ. Now we can actually pay attention to only that crack. And when we pay attention to only that crack, it is like a doctor, which is us, would pay attention to a little child, because the crack speaks to us. Because the question that you ask is what invites the crack to speak to us. And the questions that you ask the crack always is, my beautiful love. Because now we're connected to the seabed of Allah. Now there is no rejection. Now there is no abandonment of anything within ourselves. So our first reaction to a tumor within our body, stage 4 tumor, is never you bad person. It's like, my beautiful love. I love the fact that you're here. Tell me more about who you are. Tell me more about where you come from. And you become the most interested parent in the story of that child. And all you do is you begin to lend them your awareness to hear the story. Subhanallah. And in the outside world, because all of this is happening in the inner world, in the outside world, you know what begins to happen? What are we doing right now? We've just connected ourselves to the seabed of Allah, and we have started to pay attention to a particular crack. And we are now deeply interested from a place of love and wanting to hear the story. That's all we're doing on the inside, in our qalb, surrounded by our sadr. But outside world में क्या हो रहा है? वो ट्यूमर श्रिंक होना शुरू हो जाए खुद ब खुद, air quotes, खुद ब खुद. But वो खुद ब खुद तो नहीं है ना. Usko, it's being fed. Essentially, all diseases are dry lands which have been deprived of love. What we call disease or what we label as this is the dead part of me, or the infertile part of me, or the bad part of me, are actually all just dry lands. इनको पानी नहीं मिला. And in our awareness, हमने कुछ नहीं करना. There is nothing we are asked to do except to speak to them and to hear their story in love. But there is a prerequisite, of course, and the prerequisite, if you're on the path of Islamic healing, the prerequisite is, how constant are you in your state of connection to Allah? How constant, not how much you recite, not how many things you recite, not how much you do, but how constant are you in the one thing that you do every day. The intention or the niyat of that one thing is, I know that there are only two states, either presence or absence, and I want to be in the presence of Allah. And this is my abracadabra, open simsim. This is my magic spell that is going to keep me connected to Allah. This is my portal that's going to keep me connected to my own bed, to my own qalb. That's the only thing we're asked to do. And the 6 healing ayahs in Quran, healing verses in Quran. I shared a link just now of YouTube, which has been done so beautifully. But the 6 healing verses in Quran specifically made for this is one is Surah Tawba, which is Allah shall heal the breast, sudur of the believer. Because Allah को मालूम है कि कल्ब जो है, it's only in a constant state of turning. तो जो चोट लगी है और जो vulnerable है चीज, जो vulnerable है चीज वो सदर है, जो जहां से जो एंट्री पॉइंट है वो सदर. सो अल्लाह ने कहा है कि सूरह तौबा, दिस इज आया 14, सदूर व यशफी सदूर कौम मोमिनीन. And then there is Surah Yunus, Ayah 57, which is mankind, there has come to you a guidance from your Allah and a healing for the diseases in your heart. Again, Sudur, Yishafai lama fi Sudur. And for those who believe, a guidance and a mercy. See, trust the fact that there's an original seabed available to us. Trust the fact that that seabed, the only problem is that we are about 3 inches away. I was just reading this beautiful post. The longest distance we would ever travel is a 16 inches from our head to our heart. But if you were to take away that somatic way of looking at the world, more from a soul perspective, the longest distance we would ever travel is at 3 centimeters now in this moment, subhanAllah, by the mercy of Allah. Those 3 centimeters away from the raham of our Creator. That's it. That's all we are. Unka seabed, wahan pe hum unse 3 centimeter upar hai. That's it. So the trust, who believe, because ye kiske liye hai healing? Who believe in Surah Yunus, who believe a guidance and a mercy. Mercy is rahma. Rahma, we know the womb of Allah. हम लोग थोड़ा सा ऊपर, हम लोग उसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा दूर है इससे. But if we trust the fact that it's right there, we are just away from it a little bit, then we just allow ourselves to drop down. So also surrender feels like this. Releasing, letting go feels like this. Just drop down. Take your whole seabed and drop. There's nothing that His rahmat cannot hold. There is nothing. He's the creator of all universes. There is nothing. There is no smell. There is no dis-ease. There is no darkness within you. There is no level of impurity or no level of rejection within you that is beyond His raham. Nothing is beyond His raham. So allow yourself to just let go and allow yourself to drop down. What a relief it is. This bachche ko aap sula rahe hote ho. First, you feel the weight of the body and you feel the tightness and the tautness of the body, even when they're feeding off you, or even when you're putting them to sleep on your shoulder. But then when they begin to go to sleep, you begin to feel the body soften. You begin to feel the body relaxing. And then you begin to feel them sleeping. That means they have let go completely on your shoulder or on your gold. This is the general practitioner level of healing. Before we go into specialized healing, just relax, getting into the practice of allowing ourselves to drop down into the raham of Allah. And the third ayah, subhanallah, is Surah Nahl, of course, Nahl, the bee. And says, okay, there are issues from within the bodies of the bee, a drink of varying colors, wherein is healing for mankind. Shahad, bee venom, we've only begun to discover it. Ek to, black seed oil and shahad. It's the generic, the blanket healing for all diseases. But when? For the one who believes, for the one who can see the raham of their Creator. Subhanallah. And then Allah Ta'ala says, this is Surah Al-Isra, the night travel. Subhanallah, my love. Ayah 82. And we send down in the Quran such things that have healing and mercy for the believers. So just I can't say just, Bismillah has everything, has every cure for every disease of my heart. When I can see the seabed of my Creator, allowing myself to drop down into His seabed. Oh, and this is Surah Ashura, the poets, and Ayah 80. And when I am ill, it is Allah who cures me. This is the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When I am ill, it is Allah who cures me. The trust that we are asked to have in the time that we are reciting zikr, and that's a very chicken and egg. We develop the trust as we begin to do the zikr, or be in the state. I can't say do the zikr. When we begin to be in the state of zikr, we develop the trust, or we begin to trust whose zikr we're doing, and then we like to be in zikr. Both feed each other. Both feed each other. Because we begin to experience the miracles of it, not just, haqqul yaqeen, not anul yaqeen, not seen, not ilmul yaqeen, known about, haqqul yaqeen, experienced miracles, कि मेरा दिल इस वक्त रो रहा था और फिर ये मैंने आयत शिफा पढ़ी और फिर क्या हुआ, मेरे दिल को सुकून आना शुरू हो गया, मैं सो गई. Experienced yaqeen, and I woke up and I felt like there was a murdar within me that Allah Ta'ala has taken away in His raham, in my zikr of Him, in my dua with Him. Because, of late, there is such a deep, I feel most of us may be experiencing this. There's a deep, deep, deep generational healing that we all experience. And there is so much shame that's coming with it. Why? Because there's so much remembrance of the depths we can fall to, the depths we have fallen to, the depths my ancestors have fallen to. There's so much shame. The depths, not in the depths of my own self-awareness or their awareness, depths of being destitute, being absolutely away from the raham of Allah, making such harmful choices. It's a deep remembrance. ये कहाँ से आ रही है remembrance? Because मैंने अल्लाह से कहा है कि मुझे purify होना. जब मैंने कहा अल्लाह ताला से मुझे purify होना है, so then I have to face the things where I have kept myself limited, and the reasons why I've kept myself limited. And the reason I've kept myself limited is the reason why all my ancestors had also kept themselves limited, shrouded with shame, because of the decisions that we continued to make, and because we were so in such a deep and strong vibration of shame, we believed that was all we could possibly do. We continued taking those decisions, generation upon generation upon generation, until in this one moment, I'm not saying I did not take that decision. How did that shame come to the forefront? I ended up taking the same decision that I told myself that I will not take 2 years ago. And 2 years later, because I thought I had healed that wound, subhanallah, I stopped being vigilant over my own wound. And I flung open the door. I took the same decision. After 2.5 or 3 years, I took the same decision, and my body hurt. My body hurt. It was a decision that only Allah and I know about. There was no third person involved. इंसान की बात ही नहीं, मेरी और अल्लाह का decision. But मैंने वो action किया ना, मैंने वो action लिया, और इतनी shame और इतना दर्द कि मैं नमाज में भी जा रही थी, मुझे अल्लाह मिल ही नहीं रहे थे. और यूजली बिकॉज पिछले 4-5 हफ्तों में अल्लाह ताला ये करते थे, मैंने अल्लाह ताला से कहा था, तो अल्लाह ताला ये करते थे कि जब मैं नमाज के लिए खड़ी होती थी तो एकदम से मैं अल्लाह के कोर्ट में आ जाती थी, और वहां पे सारे उनके एंजल्स होते थे. अल्लाह ताला कहते थे, अच्छा पीछे हट जा, मेरी मतिया बेटी आई है. मेरा उस कोर्ट में जाने को दिल नहीं करा था नमाज के थ्रू. नमाज तो मैं पढ़ रही थी, बट मैं उस कोर्ट में नहीं जा रही थी. हालांकि कोर्ट भी वही है, मेरे अल्लाह भी वही है, मैं नहीं जा रही थी उसको. फिर जस्ट परसों, बिकॉज मैंने सैयद इस्तगफार पढ़ी है इन अवेयरनेस कि मैं किस लिए इस्तगफार पढ़ रही हूँ. वैसे तो मैं रोज पढ़ती हूँ, बट उस दिन मैंने पढ़ी अवेयरनेस कि मैं क्यों इस्तगफार पढ़ी. मैंने कहा अल्लाह ताला ये मुझसे नहीं, मुझे दोबारा ना भुलाने देना. तो फिर उस परसों जब मैंने नमाज पढ़ने के लिए मैं खड़ी हुई, तो मैं अल्लाह के कोर्ट में गई, तो उनके सारे फरिश्ते थे. मैंने कहा अल्लाह ताला मुझे सब बहुत शर्म आ रही है, प्लीज सेंड योर एंजल्स. I don't feel worthy of being in their presence, right? And subhanallah, look at the space that our creator holds for us. He said, go. सारे फरिश्ते, अल्लाह कहते हैं अब मैं और आप हैं. अब मैंने कहा आप तो ठीक है, थैंक यू फॉर होल्डिंग स्पेस फॉर मी. And so the mercy that is available to us in all moments, even when we forget that insan has been created in a state of halwa, anxious. We believe कि हमने ये wound heal कर लिया, but एक वक्त आता है वो anxiety वापस online आती है through that wound, and we are reminded of the fact that insan has been created in a state of halwa. And again, two aspects of halwa. One is we get distressed, we get anxious when we're going through a shar, when we're going through a challenge, we get anxious and distressed. But then when we are experiencing khair, we become stingy, we hold back. मुझे नहीं शेयर करना, मुझे उनसे नहीं मिलना, मैंने उनकी खुशियों में नहीं शामिल, दिल नहीं था. And because you're like relaxed in your own space, you're feeling fed in your own space, you don't want to share your feeding, whether that feeding is your love or your words or your resources. Subhanallah, you don't want to share it. You become even more protective of your peace. That is another aspect of halwa. And so uh, we've never really made it until Allah says you've made it. And there is only one point that Allah will say that you have made it. When He says, Salamu qawlan min rabbik, Subhanallah. There's only one point when we will know for sure we have made it. When our Rabb says, Mera salam hai aapko. Because that is the point that He would allow us to enter His home, which is Jannah. It is also my rule's home, but my insan is forgot. So we've never really made it. And it's not a distressing place to be in. It's a beautiful place to be in. Because I may not have made it, but I'm on the way. And in me being on the way, I maybe the distance of my zat from my qalb may have increased by 6 inches or 7 inches or 15 inches of my seabed from Allah's seabed. But it's just a distance that has increased. That seabed of Allah has never moved till my last breath, subhanallah. That seabed is available to me. And this post again, and I'm going to close off with this, the post I was reading is like, the sheikh was sharing, he was asked this question from a woman, that in my culture, I have been taught to fear Allah deeply, deeply, and to be extremely fearful of His saza and His vengeance. And you're asking me to love Allah. How do I do that? The most beautiful answer the sheikh gave. When you love somebody, what are you most afraid of? Of losing that love, right? That is the fear Allah is speaking of. So when we get used to being in that seabed and receiving the raham of that seabed, which is Allah, receiving the hilm of the Halim constantly, then being away from it feels really, really heavy. And being away from it is the biggest tragedy that one begins to experience. And so the fact that we have to remain vigilant upon ourselves means, hey, why don't you stay in the seabed a little bit longer? Why don't you practice staying in the seabed a lot more than you're used to? Why don't you be here 24/7? Why don't you just bask in my love all the time? This is what being vigilant upon our qalb feels like. Not a fear of dis-ease, but away from the love and the absolute adoration and the honor when I am connected to my seabed. That is what our relationship with Allah is asking us to do when we're on the journey of self-healing. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah Azim.